What's going on, y'all? It's your boy saying Klutch. Welcome to the channel. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a little bit of Christian apologetics. And I'm starting this kind of YouTube blog or vlog, as you would say, where we talk about faith, defending our faith, the culture, news that's going around the world, music, entrepreneurship, and just a bunch of other stuff, random stuff. But we're always going to try to tie it into the biblical perspectives that are in the Bible. And so without further ado, today we're doing this video from Ravi Zacharias. It's his reply to, or it says, the best reply to atheist, evolutionist, and agnostic. And I think the caption or the description in the bottom is, how can there be a good God when there's so much evil in the world? And I think this is a great question to ask, and it's important for us as believers in Christ to be able to answer this question properly, and not just say, well, God is just, he's all powerful, he knows everything. I think there is an intellectual answer to this, and Ravi Zacharias does a great job of doing this. And just a little disclaimer, I know, if you haven't heard yet, but there was a little bit of a scandal after Ravi Zacharias passed, but we're not going to talk about that today. We could talk about that some other time. But it does show that even though he was a great teacher and all the things that he was teaching was very sound, because it helped me in my walk and growing in my walk with Christ, intellectually and spiritually. But it just shows that we're all fallen creatures and that we all need a savior. And so just because in his personal life he had some wrong things that he did, because it doesn't discount what he did as far as his ministry. And I think it's true for us. We all have things that we're hiding, or things that we've done that we're not proud of, or that we're ashamed of. But thankfully, with God's grace, that we're able to approach his throne boldly and ask for forgiveness and his mercy. So that being said, let's get right to this video. I don't want to make this too long. But right here, as he tackles this question, he's on this talk show. I don't know who this guy is actually. So if you guys know who he is, comment down below. But let's get right to it.
Well, Doctor, when you go around and talk at Harvard and Cornell and things like this, what are the questions that seem to be most on the minds of students today?
So Ravi actually goes around, his ministry was he went around the whole world, college campuses, churches, and he would speak to people about Christ in an intellectual manner. And so the question is, we're going to find out.
Questions are very predictable. I could take a sheet of paper, Jim, and I'm sure you're experienced enough in this too. If I were to take a sheet of paper before I walked into an auditorium and wrote out 20 questions and you held it in your hand, you can pretty much check them out as they come. The first question, almost anywhere, as it was at Harvard too. How can you talk about the existence of an all-loving and an all-perfect God when there is so much of evil in this world? Does it not strike you as contradictory that an all-loving and an all-powerful God allows such moral evil, gratuitous evil? That is question number one that surfaced from the audience.
Well, let's start with that then.
I'm sorry, I gotta leave now. No.
Hey, it's just side note, man. This video looks so old. It looks like it's from a VHS or Betamax, man. I don't know. You youngins probably don't know anything about that, but us old heads, or even older than me, know that in the 90s, it was all about that VHS, so this looks like that quality.
That's the most difficult, but I'll tell you how it's
Rabbi Kirshner's answer to that.
No HD.
That's right. What's the way to deal with it? As I said to the student at Harvard, I said, stay with me for a moment now, because I have some questions for you. I said, when you say just...
All right, so hold on. The question was, how can you have an all-loving God when there's so much evil in the world? All-loving, all-powerful, why can't he just stop it? That's pretty much the question that he's asking. Why is there evil in the world? And so Ravi does a great job here, and just look at what he does, and it's something that we can learn from and use in our daily conversations. So let's get back to this. Come on, play.
Stay with me for a moment now, because I have some questions for you. I said, when you say just such a thing as good, aren't you assuming there's such a thing as evil? That is correct, he said. I said, when you say there's such a thing as evil, aren't you assuming there's such a thing as a moral law on the basis of which to differentiate between good and evil? When you say there's such a thing as evil, aren't you assuming there's such a thing as good? He said, yes. I said, when you say there's such a thing as good, aren't you assuming there's such a thing as a moral law on the basis of which to differentiate between good and evil? He accepted that. And I said, but if you posit such a thing as a moral law, you must posit a moral lawgiver, but that's whom you're trying to disprove, sir, and not prove. If there's no moral lawgiver, there's no moral law. If there's no moral law, there's no good. If there's no good, there's no evil. What is your question?
Genius how he did that. Yeah. But it's very intellectual.
And the truth is, they smuggle in their assumptions. Yes. Because it is unlivable, as I said earlier on. And in the Q&A, he stood there right in front in the Harvard audience. I said, you've just bought into my worldview. He said, I guess so. You see, Jim, the question self-destructs.
So he says this question self-destructs, and it's true, because when you ask that question and you're a non-believer, you don't believe in God, you're actually stealing from God to argue against God. Because if there is no God, there's no such thing as a moral law or a standard that we try to live by. It's just a personal opinion, my opinion versus your opinion. But if there is a God, then there is a standard that we have to try to measure up, where we can differentiate between good and evil. Because without that, it's just an opinion. And so he just does a great job of breaking down that question from the person who was asking it and showing him the problems in his question. And so, yeah, it's just something great to kind of learn from.
Unless there is a God. So what you have to demonstrate is how, with God who exists in this universe, can you explain the reality of evil? And that, of course, takes you all the way to the cross, and how in the message of the cross, evil was dealt with, forgiveness was offered, and the life of Christ comes and now lives within me to counter evil, to live for the good, and stop the force of evil around us. Outside of God, not only is there no answer, even the question is not valid. With God, the question is valid, and with the cross, the answer is efficacious.
Well, I hope that all of you watching got that.
Okay, so that right there. So, so that's just another one way for us to tackle the question of evil when someone tries to pose that question. If you have such a good God, a loving God, why is there so much evil in this world? Well, then they're assuming that there is such a thing as good and evil. Because if there is no such thing as good and evil, then it's just an opinion, like I said earlier. But if we do say that there is such a thing as good and evil, it can't just be our opinion. There has to be a standard above humanity where we can base it on and say, yep, we're closer to good when we do this, and we're closer to evil when we do this. And so that's what Ravi points out. And then he says, because there is a moral law, there has to be a moral lawgiver. That just can't exist like that without a moral lawgiver. And that's what we mean by God. God is the one who sets the standard for us in this moral universe, the moral absolutes that we live by. We have to do our best to try to live up to it. And obviously, we all fall short. We all do something that goes against God's laws, to rebel against God. But thankfully, in Jesus Christ, he gives us that free gift, that gracious gift to be made right with God. And so he kind of says it at the end. He's like, it points you all the way to the cross. And so that's just one way for us to tackle this evil question when it does come up. You just got to point out to people that the question does self-destruct in it of itself. It kind of shoots itself. And so, yeah, I just thought that was really interesting, the way he broke it down. Like I said before, I've learned a lot from Ravi in the past in my walk with Christ and growing in this kind of Christian apologetics of being able to defend our faith. But we do it in gentleness and respect. And the way he did it, he wasn't trying to look down on the guy for asking that question. He was just kind of making sure that the guy understood the question was really, shooting itself. I think that's really great right there. I hope this video kind of educated you guys. If you guys, some of you might have heard this already, but if not, I hope it really helps you. It encourages you to really study more about why we believe in our faith, because when I was growing up, no one really told me why I believed, why I should believe in Jesus. They were just like, just have faith. But as I grew older, I learned that there's actually intellectual answers to this, and there's actually evidence that points to why we believe in Jesus. And so that's it for today. I don't want to go on a whole rant here. We could talk more about this, but I just wanted to break that down for you guys. how do you answer the question of why is there evil in this world if there's an all good, all loving God? And so this right here is one of the best answers I've seen. So with that being said, hope you guys have a blessed one. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.